the keywords are lean UX startup, MVP, prototype, user feedback, hypothesis validation, challenges, benefit, user experience, users and user-centered design. Motivation and research problem. The objective of UX is to create great design, effective solution, easy to use product. In order to create effective solution and useful design, feedback from potential user is very significant for startup. The lean UX startup method was widely introduced to gather faster feedback through the MVP. MVP plays an important role to adjust between the users and designers during the product design process. So MVP support the design process, reduce the communication gap, and facilitate cost-saving activities. So research problem is like in past 10 years, study shows that like user experience has been very central concept of human-computer interaction, and lots of capital or money and has invested for developing a software product. Many successful milestones, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, AliExpress, we know about that. But looking into the new product idea, 98% are failed in the market. For example, according to Kelly in 2013, she mentioned a company named WebManage. WebManage spent around $400 million to build an automated warehouse, but the problem was users were not ready enough to buy from that system. So, due to for that reason, I would like to keep attention my research to avoid my uncertainty for startup product design and developments. So academic research already gained some attention in doing UX, user experience, especially concerning lean UX and building MVP in early phase of software developments. But the research for collecting user feedback using MVP to validate the product idea in startup was missing. Therefore, my research questions are how to collect user feedback through MVP to validate the initial product idea in startup. And the second sub questions are what kind of challenges are there when collect user feedback, and what are the benefits of collecting user feedback with MVP, means minimum viable products. So here is my research design. I divided my research in two different phases, research phase 1 and research phase 2. Research phase 1 is the ground of my thesis or my study. I created the MVP through the following steps, and the research phase 2 I experimented and conducted the user interview, and after that I result in the research in this way. For research phase 1, building an MVP, I have to, according to the literature review, I got some suggestions from there, like based on the lean UX methodologies. I declared the assumptions and create a collaborative design session for building up products. And I also create the wireframe, then visual mockup, and I make them interactive MVP for research phase. And research phase 2, after building the MVP and semi-structured informal interview was taken. The interview was held in most of, all the participants were from my own countries in Bangladesh, and the interview was held in two different languages, Bengali and English, and 12 participants were there. Most of the participants were aged between 20 to 35 years old, and most of them are professionally graphic designers, software engineers, students, and some of them were bankers. 47 pages of I analyzed the 47 pages of qualitative data and 23 minutes of video observations. So research phase 2 also consisting of MVP experimentation and user feedback. The MVP that I created in the research phase 1, during the experimentation, I had to create an environment set up with a laptop, internet connections, and webcam. Participants were asked to interact with the MVP. The MVP I developed in research phase 1 to buy a product and published a product in the service. And after that, when they interact with my minimal viable product, I asked them for their feedbacks, because feedback was very important for validate the product ideas. And academic ways of data analysis, I went through thematic analysis, where I transcribed data through sonics.io and coded data through the MVPO. And coded data was grouped into themes with a visual representation. And what I was looking for in my research during the data analysis, those were like process-related challenges. For example, the environment settings, use of tools and equipments, and technical terms. On the other hand, I was also looking for the benefits of user feedback when collecting user feedback through the MVP. So those are the benefits I was looking for: early product validation for startup product, and usability improvement, and new ideas, what the user actually think about the new idea of the product. So here is the result of my research question number 1. How to collect user feedback through the MVP to validate the initial product idea in startup. So based on my research, I created some guideline for startup to reduce their risk during the first version, during the development of the first version of the product. So here are some guidelines. Guideline for creating, for example, the first version of the product called MVP. We need to declare the assumptions in a specific, in a user story base, and then we should build collaborative design team. Then we design the wireframe and examine the wireframe within that collaborative design team to get faster feedback for development of first version of the product. And for visual mockup, in this study I used the Adobe XD, but there were some other tools as well that is also from Adobe and Sketch as well. So those kinds of tools are also available. Build MVP, I was thinking about by coding, for example, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but as my study was based on startup, I thought the startup might not have that kinds of resources to do that, to validate their first version of the product. So I had to go through the InVision. InVision is a third-party application that can build the MVP within very short time, and it's very easy to use as well. And here is other guideline as well for collecting feedback through MVP. So we need to, when we want to collect the right feedback from potential users, we need to select the potential users, like a group of users who are considering target market segment. And before that, we also need to do to send the questionnaires and make sure our environment settings are good during the experimentation. and ask them to interact with minimal viable product. And it is also important to know that in my study I found that we need to ask, when we collect user feedback, we should ask very friendly questions to the users to get insightful data regarding your product. Hypothesis validation point of view, as I said, when we create a new innovative product, we need to validate our idea before launching in the product in the market. So in my research, I was considering one case. Based on that, out of 12 participants, 9 participants were reported that they faced a similar problem and they were agreed to use that product. So in that sense, the research assumed that this idea of the product was valid. Although it was not quite good amount of participants, but we assume out of 12 participants, 9 were agreed to use the product and they liked the idea. So we thought the idea is valid in this point. After examining the MVP, all participants agreed to use, that I said before the research. Therefore, the research assumed the case of Fudo, as I didn't mention the name of the case, it was Fudo, an application. That application hypothesis was valid. And this is the second research answer of the second research questions. What are the challenges when collecting user feedback? As I said, I was utilizing the lean user experience methodologies to get feedbacks. So those are the challenges of lean UX methodologies. I mostly focus on run and experiment and feedback and research. So challenges, according to my studies, challenges found in 2 different categories. It's about the product idea related challenges and process related challenges. The product idea related challenges includes, the product idea related challenges include challenges subject to the future product concept, because most of the users cannot understand what could be the use of the future product, because they don't see anything. Then challenges subject to the product idea and user, and challenges subject to the MVP. Sometimes when we create our first version of the product, that might have a lots of problem. For example, the usability issues. Users do not understand where to click, how to interact with them. So those kinds of challenges might have that is related to the product during the experimentation with users. The process-related challenges includes challenges subject to the environment settings, challenges subject to the tools, challenges subject to the technical terms. The environment, why I'm talking about the environment settings, because I have experienced several participants with different places, and I face a problem of having poor internet connections and others like surrounding conditions, for example noise, those kinds of things, which was not good for collecting good feedback for the first version of the product. And this is the figure of benefits by various factors in the lean UX process. So I also categorize the benefits in 2 different categories. It is related to the early product validation, early product improvement. So feedback and research can help us to validate our product before the developments. So, and it also gives us a good way of improving the product before the development, which is very cost-saving activity. So early product validation consists of problem validation, the problem we are trying to solve as a startup companies. So we can actually validate our problem through this, and market validation and the product validation as well. And improvement, early improvement point of view, it can improve our usability, new feature, product features, and insight data for future products as well. So those are the benefits I found in my studies for by using Lean UX process. And here is the discussion and conclusion. I would like to say my studies will contribute to mostly in industry base, like from my studies, startup can get good guidelines to build their first version of the product that can minimize the risk, and of course they can know how to create the first version of the product. And academic way of thinking, I would like to say my research might contribute to the academic area, especially in the HCI community. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yes, if you have any questions.
We have a couple of minutes left. Well, I would like to know how long of a time did it take for you to complete your thesis from the very beginning to the end?
I have started my thesis on January 2019, and now it is December, almost 1 year. So it was really a long studies, and I had to travel to my countries because I was following on principle of Lean UX that recommend to spend time with users, that is like based on my own location. So I had to travel for that as well, and I have spent there around 2 months. Yeah.
So it takes some time to complete
Yes.
the thesis, so
Yes.
begin to work on it early. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you everyone for listening.